Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Profit Minded Business Podcast, where we come together as small business owners and small business advocates, trying to help one another through the journey that we experience. You know, oftentimes we find that small business owners suffer silently with a lot of stressors and frustrations, and we come together just to talk about things that are pitfalls and successes that we can learn from one another. Today I'm joined by Elwood and Anna Hemming of Enhanced Power Wash, and we are also joined by our awesome co-host Jacob Andrews of Media iVue and Drones iVue, and of course Lynn Spencer of Killingsworth Spencer CPA. We're happy to have a great episode coming up. And Elwood, I've known you for a long time. Anna, I've known you for a long time. It's been fantastic learning about your story and just being a part of it. Share with us how you got started, Elwood, and how Anna came into the picture.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the show today. I actually started out many, many years ago when I was actually a PA at Northside Hospital, and I decided I was going to start doing some pressure washing. Saw my younger brother, who's 17 years younger than me. A friend of his pulls up in this brand new Corvette, and I said, "Oh, he's got daddy's money." He goes, "No, he's pressure washing." I'm like, "What?" And the next thing you know, I take the kid out to lunch to find out what he does, and that's when the whole pressure washing started. I actually had, believe it or not, an English lady that was a volunteer at the hospital that came up with the name of Enhanced Power Washing. And it kind of rolled from there, and as Enhanced started growing, I decided to leave the medical field and go full-time pressure washing with it. And hence, we are with Enhanced Power Washing now. And many thanks to Anna, and I got married in 2016, so she came on board as part owner in Enhanced, and it's brought back the corporate background that we needed to really kick it off with Enhanced and to get it to really grow more and go in the direction that we needed it to. And she's done a big part of it, and now is 49% owner of the business.
Yeah. Not 50, 49%.
Yeah. Well, someone's got to make the decisions.
This is true. This is true.
Who do you really think that is? It's the 49%.
Wink, wink.
But I made the right decision to bring her in and marry her, you know?
Absolutely.
But she really does. She brings a lot of the organization and the back office and the social media aspect to the business, which is what it really needed.
So, you know, there's a lot of pressure washers out there. And over the years, I've kind of heard how you've talked about what you do and what makes you very different. What was it like before Anna, and who were you as a pressure washer? And then how did you actually develop really the differentiating value that you bring to the table now? It seems it's not like everyone else in my mind.
A lot of that, to be honest with you, it came through. I decided pressure washers are a dime a dozen. And I remember many times people like me go, "Oh, well, you know, everybody's doing it." And my idea was, how can I make it different? And I know me personality-wise is very different than a lot of people in general. And being my background, being it's the medical field, being self-employed with other businesses over the past, I knew I could go in there and actually do the actual one-on-one with the customer and show them that the personal touch that it needed. The problem that I struggled with was the whole organization, the back office. Because I could go out there and get the customers, I could get the jobs done, I could have a happy customer. But when it came to following up with things, I had issues with the organization, which is where I really needed help with that, and decided to surround myself by the people who knew to do the right things that I had no idea what to do with. And it's really gelled together with everybody behind it.
That's pretty nice. So when did you get to the point where you realized that and then decided, maybe it was a revenue, maybe it was just a point of frustration, but what was that trigger point where you said, okay, it's time for me to expand who I'm surrounding myself with?
I think that probably came down right around about 2015, 2014, when I went through a big life change situation and had to save my business. I had some people out there who were trying to destroy the business in many different ways. And looking back on it, that if I did not have certain things set in, it could happen again, such as whether it was setting up with taxes or it was setting up with advertising, payroll, those type of things. I wanted to make sure that I was doing things right, doing it by the book, and also learning to grow the business, because I can grow my customer base, but I may not be able to follow up with it. I didn't want to grow it too fast and get it out of control to where a lot of businesses do grow too fast, and the next thing you know, they shut the doors.
Right.
And that's when PowerCore came in to the part of it, which surrounded by a lot of people from the whole facets of the legal part of it, the advertising, the motivational part of it, teaching me how to be a better salesperson, a better manager, a better business owner. And I have slowly over the years have learned from my mistakes and learned from a lot of other people's mistakes of what to do and what not to do.
Sure. Yeah, that's big. And so Anna came into the picture at some point. Tell us a little bit about how that evolved and what I mean, sometimes when you bring someone in who's that intimate with not only your life but also your business, there's some changes that are made.
Right. A lot of changes.
A lot of changes.
So there's that question, but also just the dynamics between you guys working together, I think, is really interesting to someone listening. I mean, it's hard to work with your spouse, and so I feel like you guys make it work really well.
Well,
I think husband and wife working together, people get the wrong idea of what that means. We are not joined at the hip. We're not together 24/7. He is got his role in the business and I have my role in the business, and we have to come together at certain points to discuss things. But for the most part, he's in one place and I'm somewhere else. So it's not the same as a 9 to 5 because we're self-employed. We work the hours we want to work. It's just sometimes that means you take a random day off, and sometimes that means you're in the office, you're in front of a computer from 7 in the morning until 7 at night.
Right.
But because our roles are different, we are separated. If we were sharing an office in the house, and that's a very different situation. I don't think we would be doing that. I don't recommend anyone attempts anything like that. You could end up killing each other over something like that. But we kind of naturally fell into the roles we best suited. It wasn't even really a discussion over who would do what. I have knowledge that he doesn't. He can sell. I don't even want to go and sell. That's not what I do. So we work together. We're husband and wife, but we're not together all of the time.
Right.
And that's the factor of why it works.
Actually, that was a great point. A lot of folks listening, they may be working with their spouse and having some struggles, but really your business model itself allows you guys to not only take breaks, but not be on top of each other all the time. But I do realize that you came in and playing, like you said, that corporate role, talking to someone who's listening, who maybe hasn't figured that part out. What's that been like for you, developing that and you being a part, and what is that anyway?
Well, I think a lot of it comes from communication. Because when Ann and I first got together and the whole business, I had to lay it on line. Listen, you're coming into somebody who's self-employed that can make a lot of money, but it's not necessarily a set income every month.
Right.
Which is a big change for Anna, I know that. But it was the type of things, I knew Anna had a lot of good things for me that I did not want to deal with, that I didn't want to face. But I had a very good friend of mine, and we won't mention who that was, that says, wow, she can be very tough on you. But I knew I needed to be tough in certain areas, and other areas, no. But I will allow her to be tough in those because I need those guardrails put up in order to get where I was going to go. And if you can communicate with your spouse and you're working with them, you've got to realize that your spouse is going to have stronger points than you got, and vice versa. And it's a give and take. So I know when there's times for me to back off and say, Anna, how do we want to handle this? Okay, you talk to the CPA because I know I shouldn't be talking to them. At the same time, when it comes to I got a customer with an issue for whatever reason it may be, Anna knows to leave it to me, and I will take care of the customer. I will talk to them, straighten out if there's any issues or scheduling or whatnot.
Right.
And a lot of it comes down to the point of you've got to know where your strengths are, and the only way you're going to know that is to communicate. And some of those communications are not necessarily the prettiest communications. There can be, some disagreements going on, but once you can iron those out of where your role is, and you kind of stay in your lane and let them take care of the other lane, you do pretty good with it.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about like what those lanes are? Because I know just
absolutely.
from personally talking with you that you're more just hands-on. Yeah, you do the sales as well, but if you could talk, or Anna, if you could even talk about where you fit into this and kind of specifically how you drive the back end of the business that a lot of people don't get to see.
Yeah,
if
well,
they're familiar with Elwood.
As a husband-wife team, we're a fairly unique situation. I had to move countries to marry him. So it wasn't as if I just decided one day, hey, you've got a business, I'm not going to work anymore. I had a period of time through the immigration process where I couldn't work. There was nothing I could do. So that was time where I could learn more about the business. I've never been self-employed. I've never wanted to be self-employed. I liked getting a paycheck and knowing that even if I took 2 weeks vacation, I was still going to get paid for that. That's a very comfortable way to live. So coming into it, it's scary. So for me, it was about taking some control, because this was our only income, and we hadn't made a decision as to whether I was going to go back in to work and go work corporate. I had a very well paid job when I left England, and so it was nice to have that, and stepping into this unknown. But we made the decision together to put our energy into the business to make it work, and you have to be able to put that into it and have that kind of devotion to it. If you don't go 100% in, it's not going to happen. So for me, that was instantly learning what it meant to be self-employed.
Yeah.
And what I saw from that, because I didn't mind having a boss. I liked working for other people because there's a limit to your responsibility, and if it goes wrong, someone else answers for it. So going into something where that wasn't the case, I very much picked up on a lot of people go self-employed because of bad experiences in employment working for other people, and therefore they don't have a good representation of what it's like to run a business or to be the boss, because they've only ever had bad bosses. That's why they don't have one anymore, and unfortunately that can make them bad bosses. So stepping into it, I brought everything I loved about working in a corporate world to our business, bringing that real structure to it. We have an organizational chart. We have job contracts that describe our roles. So I took on what we call the back office, but it's the marketing, it's the finance side, it's everything everyone self-employed does not want to deal with.
Very true.
Yeah.
They do not want to deal with it, and that's what falls down, because it can be seen to take a lot of time. And I've had to learn, my background's analytical and project management. It's not marketing and it's not finance. So I've had to learn some of it for myself, but so that then I understand when I'm talking to CPA what they're telling me. And you have to trust in people and learn that. And once we started to get that foundation there, just things like studying what was happening with our marketing. If I post on Facebook at 10 a.m., it gets less likes and less notice unless I post it at 7 a.m.
Right.
And you learn those things, but I don't have to do a lot to find that information because Facebook emails it to you weekly.
Right.
So once you get into these things with the social media, it becomes really simple and really routine to do. But when it's one person running a business, what they want is to make money.
Right.
And that's getting the sale. It's not the background on what's going to bring people to you.
Right.
And yeah,
so you really took on the marketing hit. I mean, like full
She took
steam.
the whole, absolutely. I told her, because the thing with it is, when I get in my truck and I leave to go see a client, before Anna, it was like, oh God, I've got to pay this. I've got this coming on. How am I going to do my social media? Now, when I get in the truck, my focus is that job, that customer, to make sure they're happy and the job is done right. Because once I'm going for that one job, once I've got it, doing the job is actually for the following job to get the referral from that customer. That's why it has to be good. And if I'm stressing over everything that's going on in the office and bills and taxes and payroll, whatever, it makes it that much harder. And now that I know, and Anna and I've talked about it, Anna, that's your job, that's your stress, my stress is over here, and that we've really got defined lines, it's made it a whole lot easier for me to go out there and go, okay, I'm getting up in the morning, these are what I'm going to do, and Anna knows she's going and doing her job. So even though we're working totally together as husband and wife, we're still very, very independent of what we do a lot of the times.
Yeah. I think it's really great how you guys really chose to define the roles. You know, I mean, obviously there is a very clear role distinction because you're actually out there doing the pressure washing with your experience, but that you guys have actually said that's your stress, this is my stress. I like the way you've kind of defined that.
Yeah. But it took time to get there.
Yeah, it didn't come
with
overnight.
that. It takes a lot of, we'll say, communication
Yeah.
to get there, to really have that defined as to what is his responsibility, what is my responsibility, especially when you're talking about finances.
Mm-hmm.
Because our business finances and our personal finances are one in the same.
Right.
So if I'm making a decision because I handle the finances for the business, then I'm making the decision for our personal finances. He doesn't want to be kept in the dark on everything. That he wants to know where our money's at, what's happening, where I'm spending it and why I'm spending it there. So there has to be discussions, and it took trial and error to get to the right level. Just as you would in a corporate business where there's different sign-offs with different levels of spend. That's basically what we had to figure out. At what point do we need to discuss whether we're going to spend the money, and at what level do I just get on with it and tell them about it afterwards?
No, it's very true. It's very true in that respect.
What was that dollar amount?
I think it's when we start to get into the thousands rather than the hundreds that it really comes up. And when it comes to being pressure washing, generally that's about new equipment or different equipment. That has to be a joint decision. If we're going to add on a service that needs new equipment, I have to budget for it, find the equipment. He has to know how to use it and how to sell it.
Right.
So you have to come together and work on that. So nothing happens just on a whim. He's not going to have someone call him or text him or drive to the pressure washing outlet and they go, hey, we've got a deal on this, and he's just going to buy it. There's going to be a discussion there, and that helps.
Right. But then there's we had an issue last week. I was over in Cartersville, which is 2 hours away, and I had blown a hose. And I'm like, I've got to have 2 new hoses by tomorrow morning, and I'm not getting home till late tonight.
Right.
I had to call her. Her first thing was, let me find out where the money at would account. I'll go pick it up. And it was nice that it worked, that she could drop what she was doing, go pick it up, to where it would have completely thrown off my entire day the following day if I couldn't have done that. And knowing I didn't have to worry about, can I get a hose? Are we going to be able to pay for it or anything like that? Having her help with that. But then also helps where I've pulled in different people, such as yourself, Corbin, in different areas, to where I'm going, okay, this is where I want to go. I could spend hours and days and months researching and trying to figure out how to get there in frustration, when I could actually bring somebody else in, pay them a little money, and have all that information without me having to do any kind of work on that. And it takes the stress off of me figuring it out with Anna, being able to coordinate that with everybody else that we bring into the business.
Frees you up to go do your thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and those decisions have grown as the business has grown.
Sure.
So there's things like when I first came in, it was what can we do for free? Because there's a lot available out there marketing-wise where you can promote your business that doesn't really cost you anything.
Sure.
You don't have to pay for Google ads or Facebook ads. Just getting all your friends and family to like and share something gets it out there. Getting your neighbours to share something, that all helps. And anywhere where we could have a table and it wasn't going to cost us anything, and we would get in front of people and then, well, what can we offer them?
Sure.
And figuring those things out, anything we could do for free. And then as we started to track and we could see the business growing, that's, when we brought you in, Corbin, because it was a case of, the numbers, and it's like I could sit and do these reports and forecast and figure this stuff out, but there's someone that does that a lot faster than me and a lot easier than me and can just talk to me about it instead. So it's like kind of can read it to me rather than me having to read it myself. And that's where you start to then bring people in. And Lynn needed a CPA. I was not going to touch taxes. that wasn't even up for discussion. A CPA was just, we have to have this. And then just learning from the CPA, from the people at Killingsworth Spencer, about what we could do and how to do it, which then it empowers us to make further decisions because of the people we have surrounded ourselves with. And we still haven't surrounded ourselves with everybody that we want to. As the business grows, there's a wish list of other people we will bring in.
Well, there's also kind of a transition, because I'm in a transition right now at some point where I want to get out from behind the actual gun and do more on the business than in the business per se. And it also comes down to like Anna, where with Anna, at the same time, it's like, Anna, you can't do everything. You're not Wonder Woman. You're Wonder Woman to me, but not to the business. We got to bring in the professionals in certain areas. And I think that's one area that you struggled with at first, that, you're not an attorney. You're not this. We had to bring in the experts. Whereas on my aspect, it wasn't me thinking that I was the greatest or the God's gift to it. It was like, I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pay somebody, nor did I just didn't want to do it. So it hurt the business in the beginning. And that's what made it really hard when when I didn't do it and didn't want to spend the extra time or the money. Whereas I got Anna in here who wants to spend the time and she has the knowledge. And she's okay, we're not going to spend the money, but yeah, we will now, but only a certain amount. And it made it really easy, and we could bounce it off of each other, and build it from there.
Yeah.
What was kind of shifting gears, Lynn? You know, you have your kids in the business, so we're talking about working with family, and you've mentioned a few times that it's great having them there. But what are some of the dynamics just with working with kids in the business as opposed to your spouse that you picked up on?
Well, I actually want to go back to the spouse relationship
Okay.
because one of the things you said really struck me, and in the comment was that your friends are like, "Oh, Anna's really tough on you," and that kind of brought me back to the beginning of Killingsworth Spencer. Janet owned Killingsworth CPA since 2001. She was a sole proprietor and had done very well for herself. She hired me in as her admin. I'm a yes person. Lynn, can you do this? Yes, 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 yes. It's kind of stupid, but yes, I'm your employee. You're my boss. I'm going to do it. And then she had asked for, it took many months of asking, I would like you to be my partner, because I brought along many skills like that. Anna and Corbin, like their combination skills seemed to be my strength, where Janet was so good in tax. And the clients need her focused on tax, not on running the business and everything else that comes along with. There's so much more than just the actual pressure washing. So when I finally agreed to Janet, I said, I'm not going to be your employee. As your employee, I'm always going to tell you yes.
Oh, right.
But as your partner, I got my own thoughts, and that's going to completely change the dynamic of our relationship. And I was so concerned about that. It was a tough role for me to find, to take comfort in, that I've just changed the dynamics in such a huge way. And I always wondered how, Janet and I never really talked about it because she had the same but opposite role reversal to go from, she's the boss, whatever she says goes, to, now I'm back here going, no, I disagree, and I think we should do this, or this is what we're doing. So that, I think, between husband and wife, and then also when roles change in a partnership, because we didn't come together in the beginning as equals.
I think that's also probably a lot of where maturity comes to. I don't care if you're 20 or if you're 60, is the fact to be able to, and you have to be able to compartmentalize at times. Go, listen, this is my wife or this is my business partner, but when we're not at work, this is my friend. But you got to realize where the strengths are and go, okay, we're in the business, and my strength in this particular situation is mine, or it's Anna's. But at the same time, when it comes down to the personal marriage, it's a totally different story than it is in the business. And you have to be able to separate those. Same thing if you're in a business partner and you're still friends. A lot of times business partners will end up destroying a friendship. And you hear that all the time, or being in business with a family member. Yeah. And if you're not mature enough on both sides to be able to go, listen, we're going to disagree, we're going to butt heads, and to make this business grow, we've got to do this. But when it comes all said and done, we're still going to be friends or husband and wife or whatever it may be. And it's difficult to do. It's very difficult to do, but it can be done.
It is tough. You're right. I mean, once the dynamic changes, it's like the whole conversations change. And you try to get together as friends, but you have things to discuss. And it just naturally flows back into business. And it's hard to set those boundaries.
We have that.
Anna makes the same comment. She goes, we go out to dinner sometimes. She goes, it's a date night, and we're talking about pressure washing.
Yeah, the conversation will turn to that as to what's happening next week, or, hey, I had this idea. And the conversation comes around. There's been a couple of times where we've walked away from a restaurant and one of us has gone, we didn't talk about pressure washing.
And I think I can see the same thing with your partner and you sitting there. You're sitting there and you're disagreeing on something about the way the tax business should be run. But at 5 o'clock, when that clock hits 5 or whatever it is, your friends and whatever happened in the office has to be able to stay in the office and the friendship not affected by it. And that's the risk you take, but yet at the same time, that's the reward and the payoff, is that you can be a business partner with your friend or your husband or your wife or whatnot.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not always easy to do and to make that
easy with me.
Separation, but I think some of it's worked for us because I'm a naturally bossy person. It's kind of like, we'll just go, this is what's going to happen. And he's terrible at making decisions. So it works because I just say, this is what we're going to do. And so generally he goes, okay. Now and again, he will come up with because of his experience in the business, he'll say, well, what about this? In case they're things I haven't thought of. So he will then bring those up. But for the most part, yeah, I'm just bossy. And
Okay, so it wasn't so natural for me. It really
yeah,
wasn't.
it was. I mean, we've had points where I've even said to him before, of like, if you were an employee, I would have fired you months ago.
And I told her that's why I own 51% of the business.
Yeah, when frustration gets to that point, it still happens. It's not perfect by any means, but we know what we're doing, and that's why the roles are defined, so that it's sort of, he knows not to step into my lane, this is my work, and I know to leave his alone, because otherwise you can't run a business. You wouldn't know who he was talking to, who I was talking to, where we're supposed to be, what's happening, so that it has to be clearly defined.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you guys have the same end goals, which is actually really cool. When it goes back into your question to me about with the kids in the business, having them there with me is kind of really cool, because they see how much work I do, and they respect how much work gets done, and they're looking at it from a different view than they would have if, you know, they were just, you know, working for somebody else. But they're watching mom do it, and ultimately, I mean, their financial goals aren't tied to mine like yours two are tied together.
Right.
Sure.
But I would imagine that there's a great deal of respect between the two of you, because you're both going after the same end game, and respect that each one of you has the opposite strength to meet that end game.
No.
So I would imagine it's a good thing.
Yeah,
I would love
sure.
if I could get both of or all your inputs on this, because I have iVue Media and Drones iVue, and that's with two business partners of mine, and my dad, he owns a little bit as well. So I've gone through building like the team and defining like the roles, responsibilities with family. Do you think that's more difficult or less difficult than like you coming into Killingsworth? I don't know what your relationship with Janet was before coming in, but it doesn't have that same personal dynamic. And that's something I'm going through starting up a robotics company. It's not just my family friends that I've known forever. And that's something that we're actually going to have that conversation tonight. What does everyone want out of this? Like, what's your role, your responsibility? What type of compensation do you want? Like, what was that process like on the personal level? And then do you think that was maybe more or less difficult?
I would say it's going to be different between the two of us, because you guys are your husband and wife, and everything's going into the same bank account, where Janet and I are a little bit more competing, because hers is going into her family account, mine and mine. So I would guess the answer is different, but ultimately we want to be successful, and we both, you know, with Janet and me, we have our families and personal lives to run, so we do need Killingsworth Spencer to be successful.
Right.
And I think we're pretty much always on the same page, as we know what our strengths are, we know what our weaknesses are, and we're able just to come to agreement on just because we want the same end game.
Right.
Yeah. So Jacob, are you talking about more about getting everyone on the same page, or more about the relationship dynamics?
Yeah, kind of both, because I think it goes hand in hand where, again, I have experience, you know, where I've known, you know, Brian, Gerardo, and, you know, my dad pretty much my whole life.
Sure.
Whereas now I'm going into a business with, you know, some people are retired, some people still working full-time jobs.
Right.
But we're coming together for this, you know, sole purpose. But I'm just wondering how I'm going to go about establishing that communication without, you know, ruffling anyone's feathers. Like, hey, even though we're working towards the same end goal of making this company succeed, everyone still does have their personal motivations. Like, someone might want more equity, whereas someone, hey, I'm working full time, so I'm going to need some money right now. Or
I think that's a great point. Is that what you're saying is that really and truly, when you first started, it was just to make things successful.
Right.
But now that the business has established itself and has a nice foothold on the direction, it's time just to reframe your business plan.
Right.
I mean, that was kind of what launched you, was, you know, you coming up with a great business plan and putting it to action, and everyone just believes in you and says, let's just do this. And then, you know, here it is. But
Right.
now it's time to reset. And I think a business plan for anybody is like a living, breathing thing that should be revisited. And I don't know too many business owners that are doing that activity every year. They talk about goals, but actually revamping the business plan.
Right.
But once you figure out what everyone's after, you write it into the business plan.
Right.
And you say, listen, okay, Dad, you need this. Brian, this is what you're after. But then you get to where this is what it's worth to the business, and let's figure out how to make sure everyone feels like they are being fulfilled, and financially, time-wise, and at the same time, success and recognition.
Right.
Are your roles actually written down?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
It's very
interesting.
powerful doing that. They're written down and they're contracts that we have signed. So that it's not notarized. There's not an attorney involved.
We walk in. We walk
write
in.
them.
It's on a whiteboard in the office of the actual goals of what we're trying to do and pay off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's
But,
interesting.
but I will say there's two things that I kind of disagree with to a point.
Sure.
Being on the same page, you do need to be on the same page, but if you're not on the same page all the time, it helps give different perspectives
Right.
on ideas. And also the idea of coming in and not ruffling feathers, I'll walk in and ruffle feathers. I don't care. And it's not to be mean, but it's to get people generated, to get them to thinking.
Right.
Because if you get in there and you're all on the same page all the time and you're not ruffling anybody's feathers, you're just kind of going through life and you're going through the business and you're not growing. But if somebody comes in, I'll go to Anna all the time and go, what about this idea? And she go, are you crazy or what? I'm like, no, it's just something I just popped off the top of my head. And the other time she goes, that's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
And, but if I'm worried about upsetting her as a business partner or a wife, then I'm not doing my job to help her and I both grow in the business. And the same thing in our personal life. I'll come think of some great idea and she'll go, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Yeah. But at other times she'll go, it's a great idea, but let's plan for it.
Yeah.
And I think that you've got to be on the same page. But at other times, you can't be scared not to be on the same page. And you can't be scared not to ruffle somebody's feathers sometimes. You can do it in a polite way, in a nice way, you have to be mean about it. But you can't be afraid to do that. Because if you're not doing
you
that,
can't make everyone
you can't
happy.
make everybody
If
happy.
you're making everyone else happy, you're miserable.
Exactly.
And then why are you in business for?
Right.
You didn't get into business to make everyone else happy. And so that's the consideration. But having it written down, having people sign contracts, treating it as a business, whether they're family members or friends or just an investor, it's business. And you have to treat it that way.
Well, I think you actually get real opinions when you're all of a sudden writing it out, and then there's a signature involved. It's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Right.
I'm just here just to help you. I'm not really trying to, or I'm just here because of this, or this isn't my, like all of a sudden you're going to have that moment where they go, wait a minute.
I'm committing to something.
I'm not,
Yeah.
maybe this
Yeah.
isn't real. Maybe we really need to have this conversation now. And you're like, I thought we just did, and you find out that there were some platitudes that just weren't, it wasn't the layer deep that you needed to get to.
Yeah.
And that's why I appreciate your guys' input on this, because it's something like I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of this business where it was like 6 months or so before we even considered doing something like this between, Gerardo, Brian, myself, and my dad, writing it all on paper. And we did that because I had a couple business partners up in Tennessee where we didn't have anything written down. Luckily, we were able to, go separate ways. Everyone walked away happy, got that signed and everything. But, starting up this new business and with people that I have now personal relationships with, but
Right.
not to the, same degree that, I do with my family. It's something that I just want to, hit beforehand before we get a year down the road, and then there are more stakes where, hey, now we're bringing in money and, or we're bringing in investment and not having those terms.
Do it now. Do it now while there's no money at stake other than
Yeah.
what's coming
Exactly.
in. Like,
We're basically two people that own a corporation. We
Right.
still sit down once a month and have our corporate meetings, and they are actually typed out. We go through them and read them all. She reads them.
that is all Anna.
And that's
It is
all,
all
exactly.
me. It is all me. Yes.
That is all
But we
Anna.
have all that.
We do that. We go through everything so that once a month we know we're on
Yeah.
the same page, and we're talking to each other about what is happening. But there are minutes. There's a folder, and you can go and look in that folder and see what we discussed in January or whenever.
Yeah.
It's all there. But yeah, having it written down is very powerful, because what I found is when you tell someone you own a business, everyone has an opinion on how you should run a business.
Sure.
And I've had to pull several people back of like, do they have a financial stake in the business? No, they're playing Monopoly. That's all they're doing. It's paper money. It's a game to them.
Right.
So when they're telling you all your money should be sunk into Facebook ads, or you should be buying this latest piece of kit, they have no financial stake in that decision. And because they don't, that's just, it's a game. It's nothing more, because their mortgage is being paid.
Yeah, sure.
That decision does not affect whether their bills are paid that month. And it does for you. And there's too many people that they're so used to listening to family and friends that they take it into their business, and then it starts to go very wrong. And the first thing they want to do is blame everyone else. They listen to those opinions rather than seeking out people in business, people that have been in business 6 months to years longer than they have, so have been through these things. Those are the people you should listen to, because they've made the mistakes and they don't want you to make the same mistakes. You know, your parents, if they haven't run their own businesses, if you're not taking over a family business, they don't know really what to do. If they've watched The Apprentice, they've got an opinion, but could they do it? It's something completely different.
I get that from my dad, you know, quite a bit, especially like more recently, since we're going through like actually restructuring Drones iVue, and then opening up companies under it, that, you know, our media side, our robotics side. There's another one kind of in the works, and he was like, no, just have it all under one company. And then I'll talk to some of my business advisors and mentors that have ran their own companies, have successfully exited their own companies, and, you know, to your point, just have the experience. And they're telling me one thing, and it's like, I value my dad's, you know, advice, because, I mean, he supported me, you know, and he wouldn't want to guide me wrong, but it's just from speaking out of experience, you know. And whereas the mentors and advisors, they know firsthand, like, even though it's not the right way necessarily, it's still a way that's worked for them, and they're just trying to be helpful. So the
one thing I can say for you, being in your shoes many moons ago, God, I feel old. But the thing is, take into your consideration your living situation, your experience, what you can pull from, and go shoot for the moon. Because at your age, even if you screwed up again, you can always rebuild. Don't be afraid to try, because you don't want to have any regrets. And there are things, when I started my restaurant with a partner back when I was 23 years of age, and we ended up selling off to a very large chain and whatnot, it was awesome. But I was able to do those and make those kind of sacrifices at my age then, because of my living situation and different things that I couldn't afford to do necessarily now, but I could do them then. So take those chances and do it, because you'll never know. And like I said, birds of a feather flock together. Surround yourself by people you want to become. And that doesn't mean other 20-year-old, 30-year-olds. That could be 50, 60, 80-year-olds. Surround people who have done what you've done, and they will teach you definitely which way to go and stuff. Yeah,
that's something I've been just lucky, you know, not just through PowerCore, but especially like through the tech and startup community that I'm a part of. Like, I started to realize, like, most people I hang around with, even like outside of business now, they're like 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s.
They're really old.
Yeah,
but we're not all really old, thank you.
But I've always heard that you become the average of the folks that you hang around. You spend the most time with. So if half your friends aren't as proactive or as ambitious, and the other half of them are 40 and 50, well, then you'll end up somewhere in the middle. But if you hang around with all people who are excited and ambitious and entrepreneurial minded or business minded, then it's like impossible not to go in that kind of a direction. And then you get to learn. I mean, that's part of why we've launched this podcast, is for that exact same experience. And that's one of the things that you and I talked about, was like, we've learned so much from just being able to have conversations with each other, that we wanted to be able to share that experience in a way that others could listen in on anytime they wanted to. And so what you're doing is amazing, as far as your direction, your ambition. But I think one of the key things I'll walk away with today is just how clearly you have defined how you're doing things, and what a difference that makes in the relationship and in the business. Because since Anna's come on, like, the business really has taken shape in a way that was so dramatically just powerful, that it's just so clear how their example is one to model
Right.
for you and for everybody.
And I'll never be afraid to pick up the phone and call whoever and go, I got a question. Should I do this? Whether it's a financial, it's a tax question, it's whatever. It's advertising, it's social media. We have a friend of ours that was paying, how much was he paying in social media? $1,200 in social media, and he was getting like nothing out of it hardly. And he's like, what are you guys paying? We're like paying hardly anything, and we're getting a bunch out of it. And it's all about that. But he actually asked what we were doing, and it's the type of thing, if you don't know, ask somebody, because it's going to save you time and money. Yet at the same time, don't be afraid, because a long time I was sitting out there, I'm going, I've only got this amount of money to play with. But if you never spend it and invest in your business is not going to grow. It takes investment in time and money into the business. So don't be afraid to do it, but just make sure you do it right and you get advice on which way to go, whatever your steps is that you're taking.
Yeah, and people are giving you an opinion. They're not telling you what to do. And that's a difference. You have to remember that you listen to people's opinions and decide what you want to do for yourself. So you're still going to make mistakes and things will go wrong, but you will learn from them just like everyone else. It's just they're giving you their opinion in the hope you make a different mistake, which is what was likely to happen. You just won't make the same one. But their opinions. They can't tell you what to do. It's your business. The final decision is yours. So if you just follow someone else, it's still on your shoulders because it's your business.
Yeah.
So remembering that they're just opinions is very valuable.
It's good.
One of the things I love that you guys do is have your corporate meetings every month. That's really neat. And you're married and you probably don't need to do that, but you do.
No, we do actually do.
But you do.
Yeah, because we go our separate ways a lot of the time, and
Yes.
we've just both got our heads down getting on with it. So coming together for sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's an entire day, depending on where the conversation goes, on any point we get stuck on. But doing that means we leave and we're on the same page, just the same as you would in any other business. You have team meetings. You get together, you make sure everyone in that team is doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're going for the same goal. So that's what we do.
And the other thing behind it is too, you some of you may have not heard the saying, but all play and all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. You've got to reward yourself as you go along. And I had a hard time doing that to a point, and then I kind of over-rewarded myself at times and got in trouble. But like Anna and I, we are with Profit First. So we have a set amount that goes into a little personal account every quarter that we can go spend on anything we want to. Toys, exactly. Toys, clothes, exactly. And it's kind of nice because we know we went out there and we busted our butts for this quarter or this month or whatever it is. And we can go spend this money, and it doesn't matter what she says. I can spend on anything I want, and vice versa. It's our little kind of reward for doing what we did. And if you got that, it kind of helps going, man, it's been a long, hard week, but I can go buy dinner. I can go buy clothes or whatever.
And this is the person who has always said, I don't understand why married people have separate accounts. Why don't they just have a joint account? And when we set up these accounts so that quarterly through Profit First, we get that individual money, we split it between the two of us, 50-50, not 51-49.
I didn't think about that one.
It gets split equally between the two of us, and we both have access to both accounts because that's just a sensible thing to do. But he has a debit card for one, I have a debit card for the other, and we don't have to discuss that money. We have to discuss everything. We're married and we run a business together. This is something we don't have to discuss. And finances are like one of the biggest stresses on a marriage. So taking that away is just so much easier on both of us, because if he wants to go spend it on his toys, he can. And there's no question of, a huge airplane comes into the house and I'm like, how much did that cost? It's like, it doesn't matter. It was his money.
And that's the quarterly distribution account.
Exactly. Well, the thing I have found out with this Profit First that we're doing, it makes it really nice because Anna will go, oh, well, we got the money set aside for taxes, or, well, we got the money. I'm like, where'd that come from? And her whole idea is because she takes and works all the money on it. We can see where the money's at all times. And so when we've come, because at one point in our business, we were needing stuff to done on the house. We need this. So we just started pulling out of the account. Next thing you know, it was like, we don't have the money to pay for this or that. We got to shuffle money around. But knowing where your money's at and knowing how it's budgeted, not just budgeted on paper but into accounts and set aside each and every week, every month, however you want to set your billing up, it makes it easier to know, well, it's not in this personal account. I can't go buy what I want personally, but I do know that the repairs for the vehicle are there or advertising's there, those kind of things.
Right.
So it definitely is a big difference on a stress relief on both her and I.
Yeah.
That it takes a little while to set it up, but once it's set up and you're funneling this money and moving it around, you know that there's still, like when I called the other day and said, I need a hose. It's a $140 hose. She says, oh, no problem. She says, let me get the money out and I'll go get it. And she went and picked it up. So we knew it was there.
Yeah.
And we need a new fence at the house. If it's not in the account, we can't do it. But you got the business has to be able to support itself, number one.
Yeah, you see, it's pressure washing is, as much as we market and try and minimize the seasonality to it, it's still there. It will always be there.
Right.
And so that can take you from feast to famine financially, and through Profit First, because it defines percentages for income to be moved, because he doesn't even know how many accounts we have right now.
Something like that. Some crazy number.
But because it's moved in that way, I don't have to go to where we are in the summer months making our biggest money in these few months. I am not still saying to us, we can't do that, we can't do that. We've got to have X amount of money to make sure we can get through winter. I don't have to do that anymore because it's always set percentages moved. And because of that, the accounts will go up and down, but the money to get us through the year is always there.
So that's something I've looked into, like setting up for ours. We just have like 2 separate accounts right now. One, like just a general account for any like equipment expenses or taxes or whatever. And then our operator and editor account. But I brought this up after, Corbin, introduced me to the Profit First and listened to a podcast, and the founder of Profit First he was talking about, the same type of system and how to implement it. Is there a way to like actually automate the percentages? Say you get a job come in, or you need like special software?
It's not as much work as you think. When Corbin first sent it to me, I glanced over it while we were on the phone.
You're like, no
and
way.
I went, I'm not managing all these accounts. This is too much work. I'm not doing this. And he was like, just read it.
Yeah.
And it's not every time a check comes in, you've got to split those percentages. You do it twice a month, the 10th and the 25th.
Okay.
And on the 10th of every month, whatever balance is in that income account, you split it between them. It's 5 minutes work twice a month to put money in
Gerardo,
the right
are you
place.
listening to this?
That's all it is. So it's, when you first hear about it, it does sound like a lot of work because you've got these percentages, but you're not moving it as often. And then it's stick with it, because when you first do it, it may be that you're not having as much money in the places where you would like it to be.
Make an adjustment and then get back on track with it.
Yeah,
Right.
'cause I'm still adjusting our percentages. You don't just go to set percentages and figure it out because you haven't been working that way.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm still adjusting some of ours, and we will review it again at the end of the year, because we've already been talking about the fact that our operating expenses, through Profit First, it says to set it to 30%. We run around 22%. So I'm adjusting to get it to the 30% at the moment. So I'm actually increasing what's going from our income into the operating expenses. And we're going to assess it at the end of the year, because potentially we could drop that to 25 and still be comfortable with our operating expenses. And our profit goes from 5% to 10.
Right.
So in their business model, they have a lot of businesses run with like 70-80% operational expense comes out of the revenue, and that's more of a problem than you would think it would be. Where they have the opposite problem, is that they're actually realizing that they're not spending enough to grow the business, and that they can choose to hit a higher operating expense percentage of what the revenue comes in and is spent on, or they could take a higher profit, which means more toys for Elwood.
Exactly.
Now, how important do you think it was to also set up like a spreadsheet or like some sort of budget outside of like the actual accounts? Because that was something Gerardo and I were talking about when I brought up doing this profit first, that similar hesitation. No, that's going to be too much work managing all these different accounts. Let me just put a budget together and do a spreadsheet, and then we can track, the profitability on all of our jobs and see how much I was like, that just seems to me like more work than just separating it by
That's what
accounts.
I did do. I've always worked with a budget. I've always worked with a financial advisor. That was a natural thing to have in my life. That's what I was raised to do. So, you can spend so much of your money, but you need to prepare for the future as well.
Right.
And so I was trying to budget with an income that was fluctuating, and it's very stressful and it's not easy to do. And implementing profit first, I look at a 2-week window.
Right.
So you have to go through your statements and look at what's there, take a good look to say, do I need these subscriptions? Do I need to be paying this money out? And hard line with some of it if you feel you need to, and stop it and don't pay it. And you may even find things on there that are values you didn't realize that's how much you were spending, and there's something you can do about that. So it's a little bit of work to get you there, but then I have written down. So it's a spreadsheet, but it's a 1-page, and it's just, this is everything that pays out on the 10th or before the 25th that I need to prepare for the 10th. So I have to have this minimum amount of money. And then the same for the 25th. And through that, I was able to then come back to him and go, hey, if we only take this much every 2 weeks from the owner pay account, it's like we can pay all our personal bills. We can still eat out and still take vacation when at any point we may actually take a vacation. And we can do those things, but there's going to be money left over, because Profit First tells you to put 50% of your income into an owner pay account. It doesn't say then remove that every 2 weeks. So it's about being sensible with it and realistic about how you need to pay yourself. So we will always have money left there, and just looking at that against last year and our forecast for this year, we don't actually need to take 50% of that out of the business. That money can still sit in the business. Right. We could take less and still live well. I mean, we've had to buy a new truck. We've been able to get a new car for myself, and we've been able to do these things ahead of schedule.
We actually ended up with the business before we even doing a credit repair. Within a year and a half, we bought a house and bought a brand new truck and a brand new car, and the business is growing like crazy. But I think a lot of that is because the two focuses, especially on my point, have been one thing: not just make that money and get that big paycheck and let's go spend it, but it's been let's make sure we pay our taxes, and let's make sure that we put money back in for the business to run. Because if the business isn't there to run, once you pull the money out, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So you have the new house and you have the new vehicles, and you got a tax refund this year.
Yes, we did, thanks to Killingsworth.
Yes. Well,
Absolutely.
no, not thanks to Killingsworth. Thanks to all the hard work and the budgeting and your help with Corbin or from Corbin.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, it makes a difference when you've got that entity, that business that you have, no matter what it is, whether it's taxes, whether it's drones iVue, enhanced power washing, is you've got that and it's making money, and you're feeding it enough money in to keep it running. Even if you fall short a couple months on your personal bills, you feel like something's getting tight, you still have that security of knowing the business is running. But if that business starts failing because you're not managing that money, everything's like a thing of dominoes. It's all going to fall if you're not careful then.
But I will point out one thing that you said in the beginning, is that your number one job is to do such a great job for your customer that they're a repeat customer.
Absolutely.
And that is why your business is growing. That is why you're able to do what you do. That is why Profit First is working so well, is that you're taking care of your customer in a way that a lot of power washers and a lot of businesses, they sometimes forget because they get so focused on the corporate side of what we have to do that you lose sight of your customer. And that's just something to remember, that I wanted to bring it back to that point.
Absolutely.
Is that is really why you are who you are, and your business is doing what it's doing.
Well, the thing you got to look at, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the thing you got to look at is when you're going to do your job with that customer, whatever business that you might be in, is if you've got all this baggage behind you that you're worried about all the other bills and the finances of the business running, then it's going to affect how you deal with your customer. So if you can take some of those and farm those out to be, whether it's your partner, your wife, your husband, or somebody like Corbin who's a business and friend or whatnot, but be able to put some of that responsibility on other people, then in the long run, it takes the stress off of you. And the number one is your customer's going to realize that you're not stressed out over your business and you're comfortable and you're confident.
Yeah.
And that's
it. That's
'Cause
it.
profit first won't make you money.
Right.
No.
It'll just
It will
know where
help
it's
you
at.
manage the money you do make.
And I've heard you
That's
say
it.
that to people before too.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
people seem to think it's the answer to everything. It's like if you're not making the money, there's nothing to move anywhere.
Right.
It's not
Right.
not going to make money grow on trees for you. It doesn't magic money out there. If the money
Yeah.
isn't coming in, you've got nothing to move to any of these accounts, so it won't do anything. But with our customers, he had done things in the past or attempted things that hadn't quite worked, and I revisited a lot of that. So our customers get chocolates, and Elwood's first idea with that was a box of chocolates where he took a picture of their home and it got put on the box of chocolates, and so he would go do the customer's house, take a picture, send it to the company that gave us the chocolates and printed up the boxes, go pick it up, and then go back to the customer's house.
Wow.
That wasn't happening. So boxes of chocolates with houses printed on them were sitting at a vendor's waiting for him to pick them up, and then he was having to remember to pick them up, then remember whose house it was and take them back. And so he stopped doing it because it seemed like a bad idea. And I just went in and went, well, why don't we just put our logo and phone number on the box? I can order them in bulk and they just sit in the office and he takes them. And that then expanded out from there to actually a full-on goodie bag now with pens and fridge magnets and an option for if people are not home, because chocolates melt
Oh, right.
and it
Yeah.
gets hot in Georgia.
So you're using gummy worms, right?
There you go.
We use different, it's themed throughout the year, and it's from the same company, so it's
That's great.
they decide that. So I mean, we've even had people call us. It was one was what was it? December was a snowman made out of donuts, mini
Yeah.
donuts.
Yeah, it was
And
very cool.
and we had a customer call him up after he'd left the house. He thought there was a problem. No, the guide started eating the donuts and then realised it was a snowman and just thought it was like the coolest thing.
The thing is, I have noticed with a lot of this is in your business, whatever it may be that you're in, if you take and realize what your expertise is in that business, because you're not an expert in the entire business, you're an expert in that particular area in your business, and whatever you're not an expertise in, get somebody in there to help you. Whether it's a partner, whether it's a spouse, whether it's bringing somebody in like Corbin or somebody in like Lynn. But you want to bring them in because that frees you up, not just physically, but frees you up mentally to be able to focus on what you're great at,
Right.
and to be able to build that business.
And be sensible about it. Prioritize it.
Yes.
Because you still need to make money for yourself. So consider what you need more urgently.
Yeah.
Don't start paying someone to build you a fantastic website and this social media presence if you haven't even gone and knocked on doors for your business.
Right.
You know, that's why for us, I started with Lynn as our CPA, and then it's now we need to look at more of our finances. So we brought Corbin in because in order to grow, I needed to know what money I had and where I could spend it. And the accounting software we had would tell me that, but I had to do more with it. And I was trying to spend my time in other places to grow the business, not just analyze data all the time. So
Right.
that's when it paid to bring Corbin on board, because then he could tell us. I mean, the first time we sat down, he's tapping around a calculator and went, "This is your budget for marketing. How much have you spent?" And it was, a few thousand, and I hadn't even spent $100 because I was scared to spend it because I didn't know if I should be spending it.
Right.
So that's when you're at that point. You need someone that can forecast for you and do that kind of budget to give you an idea of, if you spend this, it will be okay.
And treat your business. I don't care if it's a $10,000 a year business or a $100 million a year business. You treat it the same. because it's going to give you results no matter what. But if you treat it like it's a $10,000 a year job, not a $10,000 a year business, it's not going to grow. It's not going to go anywhere. Right. But if you treat it and you work it just like you would a $10 million, $100 million business, you'll get there and it will grow. I mean, I can tell you that. I can attest. Anybody who looks at the numbers of Enhance over the past 6-7 years will be mind-boggled over the past 4 or 5 years what it's done, and it's awesome. But it's been treated like a corporation that it is. It's been there. It's had jobs that have been delegated to people who know what they're doing. And I know better when it's hard for me myself to be able to relieve control of anything, let alone to Anna or to Corbin. But I'm at the point, you guys know more than I do on those particular areas. I'll stay in my lane. You guys take care of that, and it's paid off. I can truly see it's paid off.
Yeah, I've just gone through something similar and still going through it, where for the longest time I wanted to be at like every job site, doing like the operations, and I'll still be at most of them, but now I've been able to like find other like drone operators and videographers and photographers that I can just kind of send out now and not have to worry about doing the operational thing, and being able to focus on growing my business elsewhere. But there still are so many things like what Anna was brought in for, like the marketing, doing all the social media, doing the finance. Luckily, you do have Gerardo, for that. But what are some other ways that you guys kind of find to not get like overwhelmed by just like the sheer amount of stuff that needs to be done to keep the business growing?
I have to say, and I'm going to say it, Anna, watch your face now. Anna is the one that I have to pull away from the business.
I'm a workaholic.
She's a workaholic, which I am too, but I have also learned over the years with my age and treachery that I've gone through over the years that I must take time. I will come home. If it's been a hard day, sometimes I'll come home and I'll be right in the office and I'll get into doing some Insightly or books that I need to do. But there's other times I'm like, Anna, I'm coming home, I'm going flying. I'll be back in a little bit. And it's one of those things when I've just got to get away from the business and do something that's totally me, and not that that I don't want to be with Anna, because I do, but there's things I just need to go do and just do my thing and completely drown out the world for a few. And I can come back, and she'll attest this. I can come back, and I'm a totally different person. I'm like, I'm ready to go. Let's kick butt the next day, kind of a thing. And Anna's good at it, but she does things a little different than I do, such as she likes nice and quiet and relaxed, and I'm just not that way. But you gotta find your way. Like Anna, I mean, how do you relax? Would you say when you're done with a hard day once you get pulled away from the office?
Anything that doesn't necessarily involve technology, because when you spend all your time with it, you want to step away from it. So it's I have my Kindle, but I have actual books too. So I can just read an actual paper book and just things like that, or just watch a movie. But I found, because I am a workaholic, I would work 24/7 and do nothing else. I am that person. I've done it before. You just shut everything else out and this is all you do. So I have to kind of put my project manager hat on and plan my week out. I try not to plan further than a week unless it's a meeting that I need to schedule. And I have a calendar on my desk that I just write everything in, and I spread it out over the week and I make it realistic. I consider how long I think a task is going to take me. So I'm not trying to, solve all the world's problems on a Monday when that's not possible. I try and just have it done by Friday. Right. And to do that, so like this week's a really good example. With planning my time out meant yesterday I didn't even look at my email, really. I didn't do anything. I went shopping. That's what I did. Mm-hmm. But I was comfortable doing that because I've planned out my time and I know what I'm doing and I know when things have to be done by. So for me, it's just that planning of it and just considering what you need to do. And it's very easy to get hyper focused on something that isn't actually that important. Yeah. So you kind of have to just put yourself in check and take that step back. And I think as well, we have an office in the house, so we can just shut that door. The door closes, work's done. We don't have to go in there. So it's at the back of the house. You don't have to walk past it. You're not tempted to go in there. It's shut away and work is finished.
But I think also going back to your situation and also your situation with the partnership thing. I have learned with Anna, if I come home and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I am done with what I need to do, I'm caught up on my stuff. If I want to go off and go play or do something and she wants to sit in the office till 7 o'clock, it's fine. I don't try and pull her out of there. If you can't worry about what your partner's doing, if Janice wants to stay there a little bit later in the office, then you can't feel guilty if you're not in there necessarily. If you're doing your share and what your part we're supposed to be doing, let them do theirs, you do yours, because maybe they need a little more time, maybe whatever. And I've learned that a lot, especially with Anna and I working together. It's like, you do yours, whether it's 6 hours or 4 hours, I'll do mine, and I don't try and go, it's 5 o'clock, you got to stop, Anna. Now, if it gets to be 10 o'clock, I'll tell her it's time to go to bed.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing I've learned, is that's where the whole respect thing comes in again.
Sure.
To where you got to respect your partner, your spouse, whatever it may be, that they're doing their job, and it may take them a little bit longer because they have a longer day of stuff to do than what you do that day. And there's other days that I've left at 4 in the morning, get back at 10 at night. And she's in her pajamas already, and I've been working all day because I was out of town. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he's called me before, and he's just like in the middle of a job, and I'm like, I'm out walking the dog, I'm done, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
And I'm just still halfway through. So that's the one thing I've seen. That you can't sit there and go, I'm working this, my partner can't work any more or any less. Let them do their thing. If they have a problem with it, they're going to come to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Other than that, and build the business.
Well, we could probably. There's probably a lot more that we can talk about.
Oh, we can do another podcast.
We'll have to do another one, guys. But I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for joining us and sharing all that you have. I mean, it's really just a great experience to be able to hear from. I think just knowing where you were just kind of doing your own thing. You were an entrepreneur, but didn't really have the business part of it down, to moving into the place now where you do have the business down. That transition is just so powerful for everyone listening. Jacob, thank you for sharing and asking some great questions. And Lynn, as always, hearing your insights on the partnership with Janet. It's another big relationship dynamic that people have questions about. So thank you to everybody. If someone is looking to reach out to you guys, they've got a commercial building, they've got a warehouse, they've got a home that they need to be cleaned up, driveways that are looking very dark and moldy. How can they reach out to you guys right now?
Well, they can actually reach out to us several ways. One is our phone number, which is they can call the business phone number, which is 678-713-1167. They can go to the website, which is enhancepowerwashing.com. That's Enhance, ENHANCE, powerwashing.com. And they can also reach us through Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and also we have Google. What else do we have?
Instagram, Twitter,
Check that out to see all we got.
And we'll make sure we leave all the different places.
Yeah,
they
basically,
can find
if you Google Enhanced Power Washing, we
You're
are
gonna
the
find you
first
guys.
page.
Yes, absolutely.
Lynn, how can they reach out to Killingsworth Spencer if they have a last minute tax question, or actually when this airs? I guess we've said this before that it'll be past that, but how can they get a hold of you guys?
You can always reach us by calling 770-552-8286. Or a website, you can leave an email comment. I will get that. It's KillingsworthSpencerLLC.com, and I will get the email and address it within hours, unless it's, if you send it at 11 o'clock at night, it'll be 12 hours before you get a response. But
And Jacob, tell us a little bit about how they can reach out to you, and maybe something specific about something that's going on, what you're offering, and maybe someone who specifically might be looking for you.
So as far as our media company goes, iVue Media, you can go to www.ivue.media. You can call directly at 678-249-0579. You can Google us, find us on social media. But if there is anyone out there listening involved in emergency response programs, whether that's local here in Georgia or elsewhere, we're also working through our robotics company to come up with a solution for you guys. So reach out to us and we'll look forward to talking to you.
And I'm your host, Corbin Cook with SMB Strategy Consultants and Auxilium Associates. And I'm obviously your cash flow forecast guy, and I run the Profit First implementation. And it's really just been such a wonderful experience working with different business owners and hearing your story. Thank you guys so much again. And to everyone else listening, have a great week.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.